Dr. Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Hall, and good evening to all of you, and welcome. And this is a great crowd tonight, so thanks to all of you for coming out. We are looking forward to this meeting tonight. Our purpose really is twofold. The first purpose tonight is this meeting gives us an opportunity to share with you some of the things that have been generated for consideration for our next bond, which we plan to conduct in May of 2016. But the second part of the meeting tonight, and one that's more important to us, is tonight gives us an opportunity to hear from you, to hear your thoughts and your questions and your reflections and feedback regarding some of the items that have been generated. So we really want to hear from you tonight. Before we begin with the presentation, I do want to make some introductions. We have three of our trustees with us here tonight. We have our board president, Kim Caston. And we have Lynette Greenhall, who has been on the board for many years, and actually lives in the Berkner area. And we have Dr. Kristen Hewitt. And we have several administrative staff who will be participating in the presentation. We have Tony Walker, Deputy Superintendent for Finance and Operations. And we have Dr. Jeannie Stone, our Deputy Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction. And we also have Assistant Superintendent Sandra Hayes over career and technical ed and technology. We have our Executive Director of Communications and Public Relations, Kara Altman. You guys met Henry Hall, and I'm sure most of you know him. And we may have some other administrators in the staff. We have some of our executive directors and principals and staff. If you'll stand up and be recognized as well. Anyway, we've got a lot of our team here to hear from you and to solicit your feedback, and we're available also after the meeting if you have additional questions. But let me just share with you what the agenda for the meeting tonight will be. We're going to kick off with Mrs. Caston. She's going to make some remarks on behalf of the board and share with you what our priorities are as a district and how it links back to some of our key priorities for the year. And then we are going to have an update from Mr. Walker. He's going to give you some information on bonds and credit ratings. He's going to give you some information on how we spent your tax dollars in the last bond, which was May of 2011. And then we'll move into the heart of the meeting and talk about some of the items that have been generated for discussion for bond 2016. So the first things you will hear about will be maintenance and construction and capacity. And then he will turn the program over to Dr. Stone, and she's going to talk about items which we are calling enrichment items. And this is the area in which we really need your feedback. She's going to share with you a number of different things. And what we want from you is for you to think about this in terms of what it will do for our kids. We see these things as transformational in nature. They take us from where we are right now as a district to enriched opportunities for all of our kids, and we have almost 39,000 students. And it will also provide enriched opportunities for our staff. And so I want you to think first about what is best for the kids in Richardson ISD. That's where we started. Mrs. Caston's going to talk a little bit more about that. And then I want you to personalize it and ask yourself what is best for my kids, or my grandkids, or kids in my neighborhood. And then I want you to think long term and ask yourself what is best for Richardson ISD as a whole, and what is best for our community. So that's the frame that I want you to view the information tonight. And I would ask that you hold your questions until the very end. We have a lot of information we're sharing, and I'm going to think and probably assume that many of your questions will be answered during the presentation. We know you will have questions at the end, so feel free to ask those. I would ask, we've got quite a large crowd tonight. If you have questions, limit them to one or two so that people have an opportunity to ask questions. We've got two mics set up, one over here and one on this side of the room. And then certainly if you have other questions and the line isn't long, you're welcome to get back up and ask other questions. But that way, I think it's fair. It gives everyone an opportunity to ask questions. Are we good with that? Will that work for everyone? Okay, Mrs. Caston.
Thank you, Dr. Wagner, and good evening. Kim Caston. This is my 9th year on the Board of Trustees. It's my honor, my privilege to serve with my colleagues here, including Lynette, who has served as my mentor and my friend for the last 9 years on the board. This is my 2nd year as board president. And as board president, I am often asked in the community, why are you so confident about this time in the RISD? Because it's a transformational time. I graduated from Richardson High School in 1976, and I've called Richardson my home for over 40 years. Well, I want to share with you the 3 reasons that I'm truly confident about why it is a great time to be in the Richardson ISD. The first one is our direction. As a board, we have set out a clear North Star for what we desire for our students, our teachers, our parents, and our community. And it is this. It is to continue to be a destination district for families who want to work, live, play, and raise their children in the great schools that comprise of Richardson ISD. We're going to continue that tradition that many of you moved here. You moved here, or your parents may have moved here years ago so that you could attend or your kids could attend Richardson schools. So that continues to be the driving objective of this board. The second reason that I have great confidence in the RISD is our leadership team. And it's the leadership team that we see behind us, led by Dr. Wagner and her senior leadership team. But I also look out in the audience and I see Henry Hall, the principal, and I see Doug Planey from Liberty Junior High. I'm looking for other principals who are out there. Hello, darling, how are you tonight? Kathy, it's good to see you, from Mark Twain, and all of our administrators. So there's a lot of confidence in our leadership team, and we're confident in their capacity to lead this district to where we need to be. And then the third reason that I have confidence in the RISD right now is that we have set out strategic goals that are designed for our students, our staff, to be successful. And let me share those with you briefly. Our academic goal for all students is that every student will graduate with a minimum of 3 hours of college credit or a license or certification that will qualify them for a career or a job that will pay them a living wage out of high school. And you're going to hear more about that tonight in our part of our enrichments for the career and technical education. The second priority goal that we believe is very important is a goal for our people. You all know that your organization is only as good as your associates and your employees. And so this year we've set out a strategic plan that's going to address compensation, flexible career paths, rigorous professional development, and building leadership capacity for all of our 4,000 associates that work with our students. And then finally, our third goal is the board set out a bond goal, a bond 2016 goal. And our strategy behind that was this. We wanted to have a thoughtful, intentional, strategic plan for gathering data, information, benchmarking against other districts, benchmarking against best practices, enrollment growth, and projections, so that we can make the decisions when we go to the community and ask you to invest in our students and in our schools, that we are confident that we will have the tools, the technology, and the facilities or facility upgrades that we need for our students to be successful. So as Dr. Wagner said, this entire bond process started with one critical question. What do we want for our students? What do we want for our children? And I can tell you there are many things that we want for our kids, but I'm going to boil it down to what I call is the simplest way I can, is that we want our students to be able to compete and win in the classroom, on the performance stage, and on the playing field. And when I talk about competing, I'm not talking about competing against the students from Richardson High School or Pierce or Lake Highlands. Those of you who have kids that have graduated know that our students are competing against students from Plano West, from South Lake Carroll, from Highland Park, from the Frisco schools, Allen, for the seat in the college or university of their choice for the job that they desire. But it's not just in our area. They're also competing against students from Austin, Westlake, and Lake Travis, and even schools in California, Illinois, all across this country. So as we come to you tonight, we're going to ask you for the tools, once again, the technology and the facilities and the facility upgrades that are going to help make them successful in their global future. So what I will tell you is I'm sitting here as a product of the RISD, as are my two sons who both graduated. And I stand on the shoulders of those who came before us and made those investments in our schools and communities that I benefited and my children benefited. And tonight's an opportunity to see the investments that we can make that will benefit not only our kids today, but our kids for years to come. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our Deputy Superintendent of Finance, Mr. Tony Harborough, who will kick off the presentation.
Great, thank you, Ms. Caston. Good evening, everybody. Hope you're doing all right. I want to share some information. As Dr. Wagner mentioned, we have a number of items we'd like to cover with you tonight, give you some background information, talk about the last bond, and talk about the next bond. We do think it's important to understand a little bit of the background. What role do bonds serve in RISD finances? Bonds are debt, is really what they are. And so you can use bonds to pay for anything that's considered capital in nature. And what that means is anything that has a useful life of a year or more is bondable and eligible to be paid for from bonds. So things like teacher salaries, utilities, and all those operating expenses, they're not eligible for bonds. We're not going to be talking about that tonight. But that's the role of bonds in RISD finances. So prior to 2001, we used bonds to pay for constructing schools and really very, very large projects. And we were more of what's called a pay-as-you-go district for things like roof replacements and some of our technology and replacing air conditioning systems and stuff like that. And most of our neighbors were not. They were using those items were funded out of bonds for years. We were one of the last to shift away from that pay-as-you-go. We used our operating dollars to pay for those expenses for many years. But because of the constraints of the school finance system in the state of Texas, there was a limit on the operating dollars that we had available. At that point, we were subject to recapture, which meant we were sending part of your tax dollars away to the state. And so there was a cap. And what happened over time is our operating tax rate kept going up and up and up all the way to the cap that's allowable under state law. And then we had fewer and fewer dollars available to pay for those maintenance kinds of things. And so what happened was we ended up with lots of deferred maintenance. We had to wait until things failed and leaked and had problems before we could address them, and that was really not a very effective way to address it. So what we did in 2000 is we formed a community bond advisory group to help us formulate a plan going forward, move away from that pay-as-you-go system and address all that deferred maintenance. And they helped us formulate bond guiding principles that we've used ever since then. So one of those bond guiding principles was to develop a long-range facility plan. What we did in 2001 is we had an outside firm come in, assess all of our campuses throughout the district and identify all of that deferred maintenance and help us, and that was really the basis for our long-range facility plan. We used that and simply took the oldest schools first, and that was really the core of our bond in 2001. We took schools that were built in the 1950s or earlier, were part of the 2001 bond. The schools that were built in the 1960s were part of the 2006 bond. And most of the schools built in the 70s were part of the 2011 bond. There are a couple left, and we're going to talk about that here in just a few minutes. So that community bond advisory group, they also asked us to develop a long-range debt plan. They wanted us to have a strategy so that we could build in capacity in some type of a regular interval over time. We use 5 years right now. There's nothing really magic about that, but it works fairly well for us. They also wanted us to, they felt very strongly about matching the life of the asset that we were buying with the life of the liability or the debt that we were incurring. And the best example that I have for that is a computer. The committee felt very, very strongly about they did not want us to go out and buy a computer that might have a 5-year useful life and pay for that with a 25-year bond. Doesn't make any sense. I mean, you would buy a car and pay for it with a 30-year mortgage. I mean, you might like the payment that generates, but after that car, you're not really using that car anymore, but you're still paying for it for the next 20 years after that. Doesn't make a lot of sense. Doesn't make sense for us either. Although there are districts that do that. They use longer-term debt to pay for shorter-term assets, and so we don't. So what we do is we match the life of the asset with the life of liability. What that does for us is really a couple things. It helps us with that long-range debt plan and creating that capacity because we're paying down the debt quicker than most other districts. We pay down in excess of 25% of our outstanding debt in 5 years or less. We pay down in excess of 50% of our debt in 10 years or less. What that's also done for us, and it goes to the next bond guiding principle, was it helps us sustain a very high credit rating. And our credit rating, it's a little different than your credit rating, but it works the same way. The higher your credit rating, what happens? The higher your credit rating, the lower your debt cost, the lower your interest rate. It works the same way for us. So the higher our credit rating, the lower our interest costs are. The lower our interest costs are, the more value we can provide to our taxpayers. So our ISD has the highest bond credit rating of any district in the state of Texas. There are only 4 other districts in the entire state out of 1,038 that have as high of a bond credit rating as we do. Now, most districts are subject to something that's called, they have availability to something that's called the Permanent School Fund Guarantee in the state of Texas, which is a AAA rating. But on top of that, every district has their own individual credit rating, and so the markets assess you based on not only that Permanent School Fund Guarantee, but your underlying credit rating as well, and that determines your interest rates that you're going to receive when you go out and sell those bonds. Other methods of meeting our needs, we have several. We still can use operating dollars. Operating dollars can be used for any legal expense as far as Texas school finance is concerned. We have other funds available in addition to our bond dollars. We created a fund about 9 years ago called our Capital Projects Fund. And what we've done is anytime we have a surplus or a positive variance, if our revenue comes in and it's better than what we projected, or our expenses come in and they're lower than what we projected, and that generates that positive variance, we scoop that over and put it in this Capital Projects Fund to give our board the discretion to be able to address projects that come up outside of the scope of the bond. Because not all the needs and issues present themselves when you're doing the planning for the next bond. And we've had a number of those things that have happened over the last several years. The biggest is really enrollment growth that we've experienced throughout the district. So what we've been able to do using those capital projects funds, we've been able to go in and add classrooms to buildings like Richland Elementary, for example, and add those classrooms without having to compromise the integrity of our bond program. So we've used those capital projects dollars to pay for those kinds of things that have cropped up that are outside of the scope of that bond. We have other funds that are available too. We have something called fund balance, and that's, a lot of folks think of that like a savings account. It's not exactly the same. Fund balance, the technical definition of it is the difference between your total assets and your total liabilities. And then you have some what are called reservations or designations within that, things, obligations that you have to pay. So within that, we have created a designation or reserve within our fund balance for extraordinary construction and repair of several $millions. So we've tried to position ourselves in a way to give our board and our administration as much flexibility as possible to be able to address the needs within our various communities. The 2011 bond, we talked about kind of the structure of those over time. We have a short video we'd like to show you that summarizes what was in the 2011 bond. The dollar amount was $170 million. And how we came up with that was the dollar amount that we could issue without increasing the debt tax rate. Remember I talked earlier about creating capacity within that debt structure? How do we do that? That always seems to confuse folks, and they think we're trying to trick them about how do you issue more debt, how are you incurring more debt without going up on the debt tax rate? It's because we're paying down the debt so fast. That's how we're able to do it. So we're building that capacity by repaying it quickly. That was how much we could issue in 2011. The reason we didn't want to go above that is think back on what was going on in 2011. Still involved in the recession. We didn't feel like it was appropriate to go out to our taxpayers, put that extra burden on them at that time. So we held the line at that dollar amount. So Brian, if you could, let's go to the video that summarizes 2011 bond.
In 2011, Richardson ISD voters approved $170 million in bond funds for our district. Thanks to your support, Bond 2011 is making a difference in the educational lives of our students. Maintenance provides safe, comfortable, and functional learning spaces. Heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, roofs, interiors, clinics, mechanical projects, plumbing, security, electrical, and energy management systems were refreshed, upgraded, or replaced. Fine arts and athletics were also addressed through work done at all 4 high schools' auditoriums, renovations of all 8 junior high fine arts areas, as well as new equipment and uniforms for athletics. Playgrounds underwent safety upgrades and dated equipment was replaced. The Environmental Studies Center, visited by thousands of our ISD students annually, had improvements made to the pond area, including a sustainable water source. All schools had some type of facility update. 5,000 tons of HVAC equipment was replaced, about the same tonnage as 125 18-wheeler trucks. 57,700 square feet of corridor flooring was replaced, about the same amount of flooring it would take to cover a football field. And Bond 2011 made it possible to replace 679,023 square feet of roofing, a little more roofing than what is on AT&T Stadium. Technology comprised 31% of Bond 2011. Multiple projects were completed to allow technology to be integrated into all subject areas to provide real-world experiences for students. Every single facility received technology upgrades. Students in the digital age learn in different ways than decades ago, and designs that worked well in the 1950s through the 1970s aren't ideal to serve the needs of learners in 2015. Bond 2011 impacted all 55 campuses. Of those, 17 had major capital projects. As we close out work on Bond 2011, we pause to say,
thank you.
Thank you for voting.
Thank you for investing in my future.
Thank you for supporting the bond.
Thank you so much for supporting public education in our community.
Thank you for caring about our schools.
Thank you, Brian. The process for us on the bond planning started about a little over a year ago with the aligning the process, making sure that revisiting those bond guiding principles. We've done that every 5 years when we've had a bond, making sure that they're still appropriate, relevant, and adding to those as we need to. We've also looked at the district's vision, mission, goals, and the profile for what we want for students and staff to make sure that that's all incorporated into it. And then as we moved into the planning, we looked at that long-range facility plan. We've not held that static. We don't just take the number that was generated back in 2000. We've updated that study every 5 years as we've had additional bonds. So we've updated that, and what we do is go in and look at, within that next 5-year period, what systems and components within our buildings will we expect to reach end of useful life within that band. We lift those out, and that becomes part of what we consider for that next bond package. We also visit with our curriculum directors, all of our directors throughout the district. They're able to prepare items for their various areas and submit those requests as well. And then what we've also done is walk every one of our buildings with our building principals to determine what are their priorities for their staff and their students on top of the things that we may have already captured, and then try to address those. Some of those items we address immediately through work orders. Some of them are a little bit larger, and we've used those capital projects funds that I talked about to address some of those. And some of the larger items that we just simply couldn't get to within the time frame, we've pushed into the bond consideration for 2016. This is moving into about the middle of the screen, and you should have a hard copy of this too. The materials, I know it's a little hard to read on the screen, but you can refer to it. Moving into about the middle of it, where we're looking at the fall listening tour, thank you tour. It's a little different process than what we've used in the prior years. In the prior bonds, what would have happened is we would have gone through a similar process as far as gathering all the data, but then staff would have gone through that and refined the number down and generated a recommendation that would have gone to the board for consideration for them to call an election, and then we would have gone out to the community and just tried to educate folks about what was included. What we heard in the 2011 bond from our board and from our community is that you would like to have an opportunity to see more of that raw list, that first blush on it, and have an ability to be able to provide input into what made the final recommendation. So that's what we're doing this cycle, is going through and providing this opportunity for us to give us input, the board to see that and then refine that list down if they want to. That will culminate with the board calling an election at the beginning of February. They'll determine a dollar amount, the number of propositions. We have historically rolled all of the items that would be in a proposed bond into a single proposition. We don't have to do it that way. If you voted in the city of Richardson's bond election in November, they had 4 propositions on the ballot. So we can certainly do that as well. And that's something that the board will consider over the coming weeks and make that decision in February. Once that, the bond is called, what would happen is we would still have meetings and provide information, but it would just be informational, and we've already gathered all the input, and we've landed on a dollar amount and the scope of projects that would be included. That would culminate with a bond election in May of 2016. What we've done for the 2016 bond is we've broken it into categories, just to make it a little easier for people to digest. What we're calling maintenance, capacity construction, and enrichment are the three categories. I'm going to talk about each of those briefly here in just a moment. And then what we've also done, and you should have a copy of this as well, we've developed some bond scenarios. We talked about the capacity. In 2011, we have $170 million worth of capacity without increasing the debt tax rate. In 2016, that capacity number is $235 million that we could issue without increasing the debt tax rate. But you have a sheet that shows some different scenarios that we have provided to our Community Bond Advisory Group. It's not the same people that served back in 2000. We have let some of those folks cycle off and take a break, and we have some other folks that are serving on that. And so we shared that with them as well. But it gives you a sense of what is the impact for a penny of additional tax income? How much additional bond capacity does that generate for you? And what is the impact on taxpayers for that? What is the impact for 5 pennies? What is the impact for 10 cents? And what is the impact if you go all the way up to our maximum bond tax rate? We're at 30 cents right now on our debt service tax rate. Our maximum would be 50 cents. So we're at 60% of what we could go up to on the rate. As far as total debt, we're at about 20%, a little less than 20, or around 20% of what our total allowable debt can be under the Texas Education Code. So we have a lot of capacity there, but we wanted to share that information with you. As far as the maintenance category, these are the items that, again, we would expect to reach end of useful life within that 5-year period. So it's the facility pieces, it's the things like roofs and air conditioners and all those kinds of things. It's technology, it's computers that would reach end of useful life. We don't automatically pitch computers that are 5 years old into the dumpster. We try to extend the useful life of those as best we can. So all of the items in technology within the maintenance category are items that will or have reached end of useful life within that period of time. We mentioned athletics and fine arts specifically. If you look on you have a summary page in your handout that shows all the different categories there. It's not that we value fine arts and athletics more than those core curricular areas like math and English and science. It's just that, again, we can only use bonds to pay for items that are capital in nature, have a useful life of a year or more. Fine arts and athletics are just, by the nature of the programs, are a little more capital intensive. So areas like English, they just simply don't have as many capital items that are part of that program. They have some, but not very much. Math, they have a little bit more. Things like calculators and math manipulatives are eligible for bond, but not as much. Science, a little bit more. So all those items are listed. They're just not quite as large as athletics and fine arts. And so an example on fine arts, what are bondable kinds of items? Well, they're instruments. They're also uniforms, marching band uniforms, for example. We use an estimated useful life of 10 years is the cycle for marching band uniforms. They get a little tired after about 8 or 9. So 10 is, I know some folks would say 10 is probably a little generous, but that's the cycle that we use for that. So those are the items that are included. If you take all of those maintenance items, $215 million, we broke that off because we really didn't feel like there would be a need to have a lot of conversation about if the roof is going to reach end of useful life at an elementary school. Do we need to have a debate about that? And the need to replace that? Probably not so much. I mean, certainly we can talk about it, and we'll give you the information, and we have more detailed information on our website. It takes that summary page, and it provides for every single line on there, it gives you a detail page for that line. So fine arts, you can refer to a detail page. Athletics, all those areas you can refer to a detail page there. The next category is what we're calling capacity construction. And we have 2 schools using we use a demographer to do a study every year, a demographic projection, and using that, We've identified 2 campuses that will reach or exceed capacity at those schools within the next 5 years. And those are Richardson High and Lake Highlands High. And so we are including dollars to be able to add on to both of those schools to address the projected enrollment growth that will occur there. The other piece of this is, remember in 2011, I said we addressed most of the schools built in the 70s. There's 3 left: Aiken, Prestonwood, and Yale. And those 3 communities have been very patient. They're the last in line to receive renovations. And we really feel like we started something in 2001 with those schools there, and we need to fulfill that commitment that we've made to those campuses. So what it would involve at Aiken and Prestonwood is a little more extensive because of the design there. I don't know if you all have been to either one of those 2 campuses. If you have, you know that the office for both of those campuses is really in about the middle of the building. So when visitors come in, they have to walk past corridors, hallways with rooms full of students and staff to get to the front office. So it's much more difficult to control access there. We have controlled access, but what we want to do with those campuses is move the office to the front of the building to better control and provide a more secure environment for our students and our staff. We also, as part of that office reconfiguration, we want to provide them with an ADA accessible clinic, with an ADA accessible restroom as part of that clinic that they don't have. And we want to renovate that office space to make it more usable and better flow for them. We also want to update the common areas, the hallways, walls, floors, ceilings, and refresh those like we've done at every other campus. That would be part of it. At Yale, the office is at the front like most of our other campuses, but they still need to refresh as far as the common areas are concerned. And then at all 3 campuses, they have something that's referred to as pod classrooms, and some of you may be familiar with that. There's a design idea from the 70s that they thought was really neat back then, and teachers don't quite think it's quite as neat now. What it means is you have 4 classrooms that are together, that the teacher in any one of those 4 classrooms can hear everything that's going on in the other 3. So they don't have walls that go all the way up through the ceiling and privacy on it. So it's very disruptive, it's difficult for them, and so we would be eliminating those pod classrooms at those campuses to give them that separation and that real wall all the way through. On the enrichment side, you can look at the list, and there are a number of other enrichment items on there, and certainly we can talk about any of those if you have a question. But what we're going to talk about primarily are 4, and they're the largest total dollar amount. We're going to let Dr. Stone share some information with you about those.
Hello, good evening. It's so great to be with you here tonight, and we're here tonight to share, as you can tell, a lot of information with you, but also we're also here to listen, and we are going to accomplish that in 2 different ways. As Dr. Wagner said, first off, we have microphones set up, and when I'm finished with my portion, we're going to ask, if you will, anyone who wants to come up and share anything, ask any kinds of questions, we will stay as long as you need us to have your questions to be answered and to have your input to be given. We want you to give us your input. The other way, though, that we want to hear from all of you, hopefully you all received an index card when you came in tonight. And if you look at that card now, you'll see that listed at the top, there are 4 enrichment items, and those are the enrichment items that I'm going to be talking about tonight. And when you leave here tonight, we want you to leave this card here with us. Find one of us, leave it at the back when you leave. And the 4 priority items, we'd like you to prioritize 1 through 4, those enrichment items. We want you to prioritize 1 through 4. And then there's a space there for other. If there's anything else that you think that we should be considering or anything we've left off, then please fill that in, as well as any comments. There's a place on the back for your name and other information. You can leave that if you choose. But please be sure to let us hear from you that way. So I'm going to be talking to you about 4 enrichment items, and the first one I'm going to be talking to you about is fitting that I would start with it because it's technology. And we have this one that I'm going to talk about first because it is one that would impact 100% of our students at every single one of our campuses. And so I'll show you some more about that. But we also have a video that is going to be narrated by our Assistant Superintendent for Technology, Sandra Hayes.
When you walk
walk into our classrooms today, many of them will look like the ones that we entered when we were in high school many years ago. You'll see desks, you'll see tables, chairs, a teacher in front of the classroom, sometimes still a pencil sharpener. We know that paper and pencil will still be used in our classrooms throughout the school district. With technology, though, we are bringing a new level of tool to the student. It allows equal access for all students. It allows them to have the opportunities to go out and research and find answers, and to be able to produce their own learning. So they may produce a video, they may produce a presentation for the classroom, they may produce a paper. We try to always bring in industry-level software so the students get a real global perspective on what they're working on, and when they go out into the workforce, they will see that same software. In our planning for Bond 2016, we could put devices such as laptops, desktops, iPads, tablets, Chromebooks. We could add additional software pieces for our students and teachers. We can make a seamless transition wirelessly from the content on the devices to an interactive short-throw projector for students to be able to see that content.
So technology. Planning for tools that will enrich learning and prepare students for transition from college or career of their choosing. You can see that every single one of our schools will be impacted, and you can see the dollar amount there that's included in this enrichment option. The idea here is, first of all, that we would have the right technology for the right purpose at the right time in every single one of our classrooms. And you may be wondering, okay, we talked about technology at first in the capacity portion, and so there's two different parts. We'll be going in terms of the maintenance portion and replacing all of the existing computers and printers and everything that's in our existing classrooms now. But the enrichment portion will bring on a lot more devices. It will, our goal here, if this is in the bond, is to provide every single classroom. We have 2,447 classrooms across the district with what we call a standard classroom complement. And so if you look at that page in your handout, you'll see all of the different pieces of technology that would be provided as our potential classroom standard complement. And what that does for us, it means that we can, at the district level, prepare curriculum and lessons and know that for every single one of our teachers, they'll have the technology that they need. The students will have the technology that they need to deploy that curriculum and engage in that curriculum in a meaningful way. And we are moving toward much more technology being infused into our curriculum, and so that standard classroom complement will allow for us to have that kind of learning and occurring very consistently. And so technology, again, right technology for the right purpose at the right time for every campus and for every student every day. The second enrichment option I'm going to talk to you about is our library transformation option. Again, all 55 campuses would be impacted here, all students every day, so I'm going to have another video play for you now. Libraries are our largest classrooms in most all of our campuses, and so right now they're being underutilized, and so we want them to be a space that all of our students will want to go, that will be welcoming to them and can really stimulate learning for all of our students at every campus. Our libraries have the potential to be an extension of our classrooms. And we know that children learn best when they're able to be active and engaged with the content. Bond 2016 would come in and really redesign our libraries to be places where students would feel welcome to come in and communicate and collaborate, and that type of learning would be both encouraged and supported. The transformation to these libraries would be such that we would come in and replace all of the furniture with mobile shelves that could be moved by our librarian to open up the space, smaller circulation to promote engagement for our students. And they told us, we can't go into all 2,447 classrooms and replace every bit of the furniture that's in them. But what we can do is we can go into the largest classroom in the entire building and go in and replace that with the types of furniture that we need to really support the types of learning that will occur there. The goal to move from traditional libraries, we all know what that means. We kind of think about, when we think about the traditional library, we think about the large shelves that take up most of the space, the large tables and heavy chairs. And what we would do is we would go in and we would replace all of those shelves with mobile shelves that can be moved very easily to open up the space. Different types of tables where students and teachers could go in and plug up computers and devices and engage in all kinds of different activities. Teaming tables, those are types of tables that can be reconfigured very easily to accommodate different groups for different types of activities. One of our librarians said, we want to move from content consumption to content creation. And so that really stuck with me in terms of we want our students to be able to have a space where we can take them in and they can really engage and create different types, engage in those kinds of different activities. Again, every school impacted, every single one of our 55 campuses, and you can see the dollar amount there. I have a couple of pictures that talk about what this transformation would look like in terms of furniture that would be adaptable, flexible, and varied. And again, this would all be about promoting both teacher and student engagement by creating a dynamic learning space in every single one of our schools. The third enrichment option is about career and technical education and expansion of our JROTC.
Career and technical education used to be called vocational education. So for many of us going through our high school years, we took home economics and shop classes. Today, career and technical education expands 16 different federal clusters and allows pathways in over 300 different career options. We have 14,000 plus current enrolled students here at RISD in our CTE programs. The end result for CTE students in RISD is to obtain a license, certificate, or certification that leads them to employment. We researched and looked at the labor market statistics for our community and what jobs would be available for our students over the next 10 years. We identified 4 different priority sets of career clusters that students would need to have experience in order to go directly into the job fields in our area. These career clusters include things like health science, teacher training, IT and STEM, and business finance and marketing. Most of the CTE courses require a unique facility in order for the job skills to be obtained by the students. So there is a recommendation to renovate the existing classroom space at Berkner High School and Pierce High School, and to build some existing spaces at Richardson and Lake Highlands to accommodate the required coursework that the students will need. We would like to expand the junior ROTC program to the remaining 3 high schools in RISD. We have 1 unit currently active at Berkner High School with about 105 students currently enrolled. While it is associated with our military, it is a leadership development program for students. We would designate a classroom, renovate if necessary, and then provide all the equipment and uniforms that the students would need to be successful in those programs.
CTE, when I was in high school, we called it SHOP, or vocational training, and there was wood shop and metal shop. And boy, have things changed in terms of CTE. Now we have 16 different clusters that we offer across all of Richardson ISD, and the goal here is to provide every single one of our students with meaningful options to prepare them, expose them to things that they can explore while in high school. So either they go on to college, or if they decide to go into a career field, they could possibly have that. We hope that they'll have that decision made when they graduate from high school. We have a goal in Richardson ISD that every single one of our students will graduate with either 3 college hours or a certification or license. And so to do that, we need to have the programs available for them to explore while they're in high school. So the goal here is to go in and to focus on those areas such as teaching, and shout out, where's Mrs. Lyons? She's here. Yes, Mrs. Lyons is one of our awesome CTE teachers who's here. And those to build classrooms that actually mirror the workplace, so that students can go in and engage in real activities with the types of tools that they need to be exposed to those types of activities that mirror the workplace. So you can see the dollar amount there. Every single one of our high schools will be impacted, but if you are a parent of a child, a student in a younger grade, then we hope that you will see that that's in store for your kids' future. Because we want every single one of you to raise your kids here and to have them to go to one of our 4 high schools and engage in these programs when they get there. So see that coming up for their future. Again, expansion of JROTC, we have it at 1 high school, Berkner, and we have 105 students, and we want to go expand that to have it to be a program provided to every student in high school. There's so many benefits to JROTC in terms of scholarships, and I recently learned that if a student is in JROTC for 3 years and they graduate and they go into the military, they are automatically promoted 2 ranks and 2 pay grades. And so, and then the scholarship opportunities are great. So we want to expand that, and you can see the dollar amount there if that is decided to go in Bond 2016. The last enrichment option I'll talk to you about is our multi-purpose facility. And we have a video about that. And we have our Director of Athletics, who is back in the back, and our Director of Fine Arts. They're both here tonight, and they're going to be shown in this video.
I think the first thing that you're going to see is you're going to see an opportunity for there to be 4 walls and a roof and cover ventilation system that allows kids to either stay warm or to be able to stay cooler than they would be if it was in August and we were outside, either on a grass field, astroturf field, or a concrete field. You're going to see an opportunity to be able to segment the practice facility into different arenas for multiple groups to use at the same time. Currently, our marching bands rehearse on concrete practice fields, which are parking lots at each of the 4 campuses. 90% of the time they're on there. When those marching bands start in June and work all the way through the months of November, the pavement's getting as hot as 125, 130 degrees when you take a thermometer out there. And then you speak in regards to our drill teams, to our cheerleaders, to our country and western dance teams. They're basically using whatever facility they can get into, whether that's juggling inside of a gym, whether that's trying to get outdoors. But currently the situation is we're trying to find the best place to put folks, and that's either outdoors for many of them in a parking lot, or that's indoors on a gym floor for the most part.
We lost last year due to the elements over 160 competitions or practice opportunities. And to make those opportunities up, sometimes we have to be very creative. We may get on a bus and go to other facilities, or we just didn't get to practice. What educationally this would do for us is allow us to practice more groups at one time to shorten that workday. The actual facility that we're looking at is a rubber field, softball field, baseball field, a soccer field. We have a 4-lane track to work on starts, to work on sprints, to work on many things to reach all aspects of our 17 varsity sports. All those team sports are playing on something that has a GMAX rating that has been approved to prevent concussions. So we're putting them in an environment that is safe. We're not new in requesting this. There's over 50 of these in the immediate North Texas Metroplex area.
You know, I can easily see walking in, seeing a 300-member marching band practicing. I could see right next door, you've got a full athletic opportunity for strength and conditioning. Next door to them, you're going to have the drill team possibly. You've got this multitude of different things going on at the exact same time in a safe and secure environment.
So again, we would be building potentially 4 multi-purpose practice facilities, 1 in each one of our high schools. And we want you to know that the goal here would be to have more students impacted in this than you can even imagine. So you can see the list of programs that are there and would not only be these students in our high schools, but also we can see bringing in students from our junior highs and our feeder patterns to these high schools to have different types of activities there, as well as focus on having activities, community events in these types of facilities as well. And you can see the total there for the 4, again, 1 in each one of the high schools, as well as PE classes. There would be a goal to have PE classes utilizing them as well. And then the locations that are there, you can see as well, and you can see the location there for Berkner. And one thing that we have been sharing is that none of these are set in stone, really, except for Richardson High School. Really, they're limited in terms of their landscape to really only one location. But all of the rest of them, we are just proposing a site and having feedback come in about where would be the best place to land for that facility in the end. And a few things about the multi-purpose facility that I will tell you. We would be talking about an 80-yard sized turf field, and there would be a weight room that would be large. There's about 4,000 square feet of, that would include storage for fine arts, storage for athletics, a classroom. They would, the weight room would actually, the existing weight room that we have right now in each one of our buildings would be repurposed and remodeled for a wrestling room. So a lot of different purposes for this facility beyond just the field space. They talked about the track, and so the goal here for the multi-purpose facilities would really be just to provide an additional safe facility for all of our students at each one of our high schools and really our whole community to enhance the success for our students. And so those are the 4 enrichment options that we would talk about: technology, and then CTE, ROTC, and the library transformation, and the multi-purpose facilities. And so what we want to do now is just really open up the floor to you and have you to come up to a microphone and just share any thoughts that you might have, comments, or definitely get every one of your questions that you might have tonight answered. So the floor is yours, so come on up and we'll be here. Yes, sir.
Well, I was going to, none of the items on the agenda, I mentioned thinking about the San Bernardino thing today and all the school shootings. Is there anything that's maybe proposed regarding enhanced security on campuses?
You know, we took a step a number of years ago to provide controlled access to all of our buildings, so we were trying to be proactive with that. We've already addressed that. I think that really the 2 campuses where we would be enhancing the security are Aiken and Prestonwood, by moving those offices to the front of those buildings and being able to better control visitors that are coming in and screening those before they have access to the full building. But we expect to maintain the existing security features that we do have. There is an item for replacing our security cameras at all of our campuses, moving away from the old analog systems to a digital system, and we'll work with each one of our building principals to determine location of those and give them better views throughout the building so that they can better monitor what's going on both inside and outside the campuses. Those would be the 2 main items.
I had another question, but I forgot.
Yes, sir.
Ronnie George. I was just curious, the people that are here representing the RISD tonight, how many people actually live in the city of Richardson? Okay. You don't live in the city?
I live in the Richardson ISD, but it's the city of Dallas.
Well, you're a Richardson taxpayer there.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Shane Baxter, born and raised in Richardson, 3 kids that have come through Berkner, one that's about to finish here at Berkner, he's a senior. I really have more of a lobbying point than I do a question. I want to talk about these indoor facilities. I think RISD is an excellent school district. I can't tell you how much I appreciate the job they did for my children and everything, but I'll tell you a place that I think we woefully lag behind the other districts is these athletic facilities and these indoor facilities. And my children played soccer, baseball, basketball, football, all here in Berkner. And I come kind of echo what was said in that film up there, that my son played baseball last year, and they actually got, I think, 2 practices before their first game because we just couldn't use the field due to the weather. the rain, the way the rain has gotten, be it comes, we get 8 or 10 inches over 6 or 7 days, and the field fills up with water and they just can't use it. If you go around to the surrounding communities, we play a lot of sports, my children have been in sports, you'll see that, like I said, the one place that we lack way behind is this indoor facility, of the ability to have a place for not just the athletes, but the band. I know when I come out here for the morning football practices, the band is out there just, just sweating away in the heat and everything. And I think this indoor facility is something that I don't think that it puts us ahead of anybody. I think it just catches us up where everybody else is at. And I think that's something that needs to really be looked at hard, and it's something that we need. I heard the president say that they wanted Richardson to be a destination district. I think without these kinds of facilities, we're not a destination district. I think we lose athletes and students to other districts because we don't have these facilities. So, like I say, not so much a question, but more of a lobbying thing, that I want the board and everybody to really look at that hard and look at the surrounding communities and put us in a position so that we can be that destination district. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Brian Shanholt. My daughter and I, we are one of the people that Kim Caston mentioned that moved to Richardson for the school district. And I really kind of wanted to lobby a little bit more for Berkner specifically than for some of the others. I noticed that in the capacity and construction section, we put Richardson High School on that list because they're having a higher enrollment levels. But I really believe that we're losing people that should be enrolling in Berkner to that facility. When my daughter and her friends came up from Apollo, we toured Richardson and we toured Berkner, and we wanted Richardson. We really did. It was a better facility, better campus. What drove us to Berkner was the STEM Academy. It was why we chose this school in particular. But my daughter comes home every day and says, "Dad, I really have to go to the bathroom because I don't go to school. They're nasty, they're disgusting." And we went around and took some pictures, and I've got pictures. I brought them for you. There are bathrooms where there are 4 sinks and 1 mirror. Missing mirrors, missing paper towel dispensers, just things that woefully need to be replaced. And some of her friends that were supposed to go to Berkner but chose to go to Richardson took some pictures of their bathrooms, and they're nice, really nice, functional, hand-activated washing things, and all sorts of upgrades that they need that we don't. And Berkner has. I didn't really want to mention the school shootings, but our entryway here at the front, it lacks lighting. So as you come up to the front of the building, 5:30, 6 o'clock at night, there's one functioning light at each column, where there are 3 outlets up there, but 1 light each. Just lots of things that need to be repaired here. And like I said, I got a whole pamphlet full of pictures for you. But I think upgrading it, spending money to increase Richardson High School, it's solving a symptom of their higher enrollment levels. More kids are going there because it's a nicer facility. If we had more money at other facilities, we wouldn't have that overpopulation problem.
Is that this is the reason why we're here, to listen, and we value that because we want to hear what it is that you would tell us through your feedback and through the cards that you would share about what it is that we should be considering. So we want to hear that from you, and we appreciate it. We'll look at this. Thank you.
If I could just answer a couple of your questions, you can go ahead and stay.
What?
Can I answer your first? Can I give you some information on your first comments first, and then Ms. Stone can talk about the transfer policy? In that maintenance piece that we talked about, we've got Berkner. There's a detail. If you go to that the website, it has a page, and we also have what we call a dot chart, so you can look at your particular campus and you can see the types of things that are going to be addressed at each of them. We have $2 million included in the maintenance piece to address all the restrooms at Berkner High School that are older than the freshman programming construction that occurred. So that is everything except for the new wing, the newer wing. All of those will be addressed as part of the law. The other piece on the entry, that was one of the items that Mr. Hall had identified when we walked the building with him. And so what we've done is in the original piece, we've included some funds to be able to give you a more prominent entry feature. You really don't have that. I mean, I know you know that.
I did drive by Richardson and took a picture of their entry.
It's much more
Like,
prominent.
that's nice. Yeah.
And so, when you drive it, if you're not familiar with Berkner and you come up, the marquee, as you all well know, I mean, I'm not telling you that you don't know, the marquee is quite far from the front of the building. And so if somebody's visiting and they're not familiar with it, they're a little confused about where they're supposed to go. And so what Mr. Hall had identified and Mr. Griffin before him is trying to do something on the front of the building to make that entry more prominent, some additional lighting, replace some of the windows on the front, and then be able to revisit the access there are all part of that original piece of work.
Okay, but yeah, the windows are also a very important piece. I noticed a lot of them are, 8-inch glass, uninsulated. My daughter tells me all the time that classrooms with windows are either really, really hot or really, really cold, depending on the season.
Right.
And that just, we don't need to mess with the air conditioners, we need to replace the windows.
And so we've broken those into a couple of phases. That's what we normally do for the high schools. And so this phase, we're going to address some of the front windows there to be part of that entry and try to accomplish multiple goals there that Mr. Hall had identified.
And your question about the transfer policy or the eligibility, there is a transfer policy. We have applications to go to the STEM Academy. If you or anyone else would want to stay after and have me go through that, have us go through that with you, just stay after and I'll go through that with you.
What the district is doing to keep those students in the neighborhood school? Because I know for a while that was a big thing.
Yeah, we live here, we live right here in Berkner Park.
All of our students, and then that changes the demographics. We are, as a district, we're letting so many kids go to school.
Well, and I think that, and I'm not trying to jump in on Dr. Stone, part of that's part of the reason that we've identified those 4 priority areas within CTE, and we want to make those programs available at all 4 of our high schools. So, students here at Berkner are not having to make a choice about, well, I want the health science program, and I want to make them get the really good one is to go to Richardson High. We want to have the same type product and program here that we do there. So that's what would be included. So we have dollars in for renovation at Berkner. We're fortunate to have enough space here to be able to address the projected enrollment. So we're going to take some of that existing space and we're going to renovate that to give you and your students the same opportunities that they would have at the other schools.
I think what she's saying is more like, opportunities and curriculums aside, if they were all equal, they're still going to prefer the nicer campus. They're still going to prefer, nicer sinks, nicer bathrooms. They're going to take a tour of that school and go in. They're going to drive by and see that entry feature and say, that's where I want to go.
And those are the
I want to
items
go
that
to
we've
this
included.
1969
Right.
entry feature.
Yeah, we've included those items in this 2016 model to try to address that. Yes, ma'am? I'm sorry.
I'm Gayla Partlow, and I had the same question that gentleman did about, I took 2 of the senior tours that RISD offered for 2 years and noticed that all of our guides at Richardson High School were transfers from Berkner. And I'm in the Berkner area, so that bothered me just a little bit. But my real question is, my sister Linda Kelly wrote some of the RISD bond issues a few years ago, and she wanted me to ask, she lives in this area in the Berkner and couldn't be here, who are the bankers for the bond issue?
Who are the bankers?
Yes.
It would, for the 2016 bond, we haven't determined those yet because we haven't sold those bonds yet. The financial advisor that we use currently is First Southwest. And then what we've done is we go out and we did something that's called a solicitation. It's like a bid for what are called the bond underwriters. And those are the folks that would go out and be responsible for marketing and selling your bonds. And so we have a pool of those, and there are 7 firms in that pool. The top 3 in that pool are RBC Dane Rauscher is one of the top 3. We have BOSC, which is Bank of Oklahoma Service Center, is what that stands for. They're one of the top. They're one of the top three, and then Raymond James is the other of the top three. There are others, but what typically happens is, depending on the size of the issue, you wouldn't use more than 3 underwriters or bankers as part of it, because it just becomes too small of a piece of the debt for them to really get too excited about it. But those are the firms we use now. What will happen is, in the spring, what we'd like to do is we'll go out and do another solicitation for those bond underwriters and reevaluate those firms and making sure that we have the strongest team possible to help us in marketing the future issue.
Well, afterwards, I'll have to go write those down. She was with Rauscher.
Oh, great. Yeah, so we've had a long relationship with them.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Barbara Hazen, the council delegate from Big Springs, and we're having a board meeting tomorrow night, so I wanted to clarify, so I explain things correctly to them. And I wasn't wondering, do we have an overall number of the size of bond we're going to ask for? Because you give us these numbers on how much things will cost, but I don't know. Does that mean we're choosing between these 4 things? Or is there a larger number or a smaller number we're looking at?
There's, in your material that you have, hopefully you got a copy of it, there's a summary page, and it has the grand total. If you took the maintenance portion, the construction, the capacity portion, and all the enrichments that are identified right now, are on that page. I think it's like $417 million. And so we're not necessarily trying to say it's an either or. What we're wanting is just your opinion about, should these be included? Should they not be included? Is there something else you'd like to include? And then what the impact would be for those. If you took all of those together right now, how does that compare on that financial, those bond scenarios that we listed? Right now, at the $417 million, if you did everything on that list, it would cost about 8.09 cents additional tax equity is what it would cost.
Okay, so it's not absolutely, it's possible we could do all of them. It all could be in there.
Sure.
Okay.
You could do all, you could do less. What we're doing is a little different, like I mentioned earlier, is normally we would have refined this and come up with a recommendation that we carried forward to the community and to the board, but everyone indicated that they just wanted the opportunity to provide some feedback about, what do you value, what do you not value as much. And it could be that you value everything and you like to see it all included, or it could be that you value none of it and you don't want to see any of it included, or somewhere in between, or you may have your own area of priority that you feel like we need to address that we haven't. So that's what we want to try to capture on the card, but it's not an either or.
Okay, that's great. And I wanted to know, I'm sure I'm not the only board member here, but I want to have them have this opportunity as well. What's the best way to communicate, what we're going to do with the cards? Is there on the website?
You can actually go to the website and you can access the same information, and it gives you the opportunity, if you're not able to attend one of the meetings, to fill out the comment card and submit that to us. And then what we're going to do is, after each meeting, we take all of the cards and we're compiling that information, and then we're going to give that information to the board in January to help them make their decision about calling the election, or what amount, include what items, how many propositions, that type of thing.
Well, thank you very much.
Sure.
We're happy you guys are doing this, by the way.
Thank you. I'll make an additional plug for our website. If you go to rsd.org, www.rsd.org, you go to the bond little tab on there, and there's an FAQ on there that has tons of questions that have been asked and answers. And if you have any questions, you can submit those and we'll ask those as well. And all the videos that you've seen tonight, they're all on that website as well, so you can go through, you can show, so reference that to your PTA members and have them to watch that, and be sure to submit a card as well. So we want their input for anyone who could not attend. So other questions? Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am. I was curious once again about this career and technical education. Does this include stuff like cosmetics, carpentry, masonry, trade skill type stuff? And I thought I understood you to say that this would be available on every campus?
Well, those four priority areas would be, and then other items, and we have Ms. Hayes here that can speak to a little better than I can. There's 16, they call them clusters, there's 16 total clusters. So each campus has a different set of those. But what we want to do is make sure that those four priority clusters are available: the health sciences, the education training, the technology, STEM, and the what's the fourth one? Business marketing, sorry. Business marketing, we will make sure that those four priority areas are available at all four high schools.
But then, like if you had auto mechanics, that might only be available at Lake Highlands.
Richardson, it's actually, that's at Richardson, that's offered at Richardson. But basically, if you can come up with any career, there is a career cluster that is supported somewhere at one of our four high schools. So cosmetology, culinary,
It's available
engineering.
at one of the schools.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
Yes, ma'am.
I came up with more questions. With the athletics facility, I'm all for it, but not at a cost of $20 million. And I know that it includes different things like the new weight rooms and stuff like that. Can we get a breakdown as far as how much it's going to cost for the indoor practice facility versus the renovations to the weight rooms, that sort of thing?
Sure, we have that information.
Where?
Well, we don't have it posted to the website other than just the detail page, but that is information we can provide to you.
Okay, that would be great. And it would be great if we had hot showers for the boys. Mine took cold showers this morning. And then I have to agree with this gentleman here about the bathrooms here because I've been in bathrooms with no toilet seats and the toilet seats are gross. So that's good to hear. I'm glad to hear that. As far as you talked about long-term bonds and short-term debt and long-term debt, how long is this bond for? Like, if this bond gets approved, how long will it be for? Will it be for the 5 years, or will it be a 30-year? And then how much interest will we be paying as taxpayers on this, however many, $300 million or whatever it is that the totals are?
It's a little different than the way you might think of a loan. If you buy a house, you will get one loan. For us, what it will be is a whole series of loans, because what we'll do is once the bond is determined and called, and once an election occurs and passes, what we do then is we have what's called a draw schedule, and we'll determine how much of that total bond package we would sell or issue in each one of those years. And so the first year is typically a little bit smaller because you don't have time to design large projects, but you go out and sell that, and it would be a blend of maturities. So within that first sale, you'll have some maturities, you'll have some portion of that bond that would mature in a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, every year, all the way up through about 25 years. So it's not that it has a single maturity and all that's a long-range debt. It's a blend of maturities included within each sale. Now, as far as what the total debt cost would be on it, have no idea until we actually sell it. Don't know what the total dollar amount will actually be that we would issue. Don't know how much we would sell in each one of those years. We haven't determined the bond draw schedule yet, and it would depend on the interest rates that were in place at that time.
Is there any historical data on how much it has cost in interest on previous bonds?
We have that on you can go to our website and look at our comprehensive annual financial report, and it shows our total debt outstanding, and it shows the total interest expense associated with that on an annual basis.
So that's in the
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other? Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit though about how well we've done in order to years? I don't know, not everyone, how you don't hear about Richardson having issues like we did tonight, because of how you do the long-term capital effect versus like teacher salaries and things like that we're not including in the bond. And so, just to let everybody hear that, I don't think everybody here realizes how financially responsible our
some information, because it really comes down to our board. You've got to have a good board. You got to have support of the board and support of the superintendent, and it doesn't matter on the finance end what's going on if you don't have those two things in place. So, we've been fortunate for a long time. We've been very conservative financially. We have one of the lowest tax levies of any district in the Dallas, Collin County area. We have the third lowest tax levy because the way we get there is because we're still one of the few districts that continue to offer a local optional homestead exemption. And I think a lot of people forget that. The only other districts in the immediate area that do that are Dallas and Highland Park, and that's it. So we have valued that for years and have that in place, and so that creates a very low levy for us, and we've maintained that. That credit rating we talked about, that we feel like is a very strong indicator of financial strength because the credit rating agencies look at 60 different indicators across the district to make that assessment. And we've had a very high rating. It got upgraded to AAA with Moody's a few years ago, and we have AA plus with Standard & Poor's. So again, we have the highest rating of any district in the state of Texas, and there are only 4 that have a higher one. No one has a higher one. There are only 4 that have as high as our ISD. So we think that's reflective of our financial strength. We think that the board's approach as far as using variances on our budget, and I'll give you a little information about that. Don't want to bore you with too much detail on the school finance side. But the way that works is as your property values go up every year, what happens in the state of Texas is as your property values go up, your state revenue goes down for districts. The exception is that they use, in the calculation, they use your prior year value to determine your state revenue. So if your values go up this year, we would get to retain that money for 1 year. And then what happens is next year, that additional money goes away because the state would lower our state revenue by an equal amount. So it's called lag. And what we have done for a number of years is we don't budget that lag into our operating budget. And the reason we don't is if it grows by, like this year we projected a growth of 4% on property values. If we budgeted that 4% growth into our operating budget, what would have to happen next year is it would have to grow by another 4%. Not the same 4%, another 4%. And the year after that, another 4%. And what's going to happen at some point is it's going to grow, but it's not going to grow by the same amount. And when that happens, now you're going to get caught because your state revenue will be lower and you'll have a deficit budget. So we've intentionally not budgeted that 1 year lag in so that we have a more stable financial environment. And that's the reason that we didn't have to lay off teachers a few years ago when there were huge cuts at the state level on public education. Is because of that conservative approach of our board and our administration, we were able to weather that storm. We had to make cuts, but we didn't lay off staff like surrounding districts had to do. We also haven't had to have a tax ratification election taking our tax rate up above the $1.04 that we're at right now, and many of our neighbors have already done that. So we've tried to be conservative, we try to be good stewards with your dollars. The board has honored those things for years. Is that kind of what you were looking for? Maybe not. Well, I appreciate that. That's probably about all I'm comfortable saying. But it's not just me. I mean, I want to make sure you know it's not just me. I mean, it's... It's really the board. I mean, the board is the one that sets the tax rate, they adopt the budget, they set the tone for this, so if you don't have a strong board, none of that stuff works. So, thank you for that. Yes, ma'am.
This is my third meeting to come to you here this year. I'm glad to know that y'all are being open to hearing other issues, but my main thing is, I'm hearing operating budget. I am not a finance person. I'm a common sense, just matter of fact person. I put my kids in Richardson because of the reputation. I graduated from Richardson High School many years ago, but came to this to get out of Dallas, ISD. And I'm expecting, as a customer, a end customer, a high level of, I don't know, broken toilet seats, I don't want my kids to be fearful, it happens at elementary schools, it happens at middle schools, high schools. I know you're in the process of renovating. Oh, wow, there's a broken toilet seat, or not a toilet seat, or whatever the heck is going on. What about the operating budget to maintain so our kids can come into a clean, safe environment? I don't know if there's doors on the bathroom. I have no idea what's going on. I don't go to the high school. Actually, I did, and it's Richardson is where my son goes. But I just worry about, like, who's looking at the money. We get all these awards for all this finance stuff. Great, I think that's great. But what about, like, almost safety? We talked about Prestonwood, having vulnerability, somebody walking in, passing classrooms. How do we have to wait for bond? I mean, do we not have enough money in the operating budget? Sounds like we have enough to throw together a non-traditional high school pretty quick. I mean, that's not my elementary school, but I am concerned about those kids. It's common sense. And you're talking about, we, made it safe in the high school. Baloney, anybody can walk into those doors. There's such a disconnect from what's actually what parents and our children are telling us. The information you're getting, you're not getting it. If you're getting it, you're not acting on it. And that's safety. That's number one. That's number one. And I'm not against the practice. I mean, really, I'm not against it. I think it's really good. I have a son that is unfortunately not in Richardson anymore. He's in private school because he couldn't get services in school here in Richardson. But he's an athlete, and I get that. I get that is so needed. And I appreciate that. But if we don't have the instruction to teach our kids, it's about education first, safety education. Athletics, I know that's a part of it, but there's such a disconnect. And there's so many parents that are going, really? In some of the decisions? Lake Highlands, last night, awesome question and answer. And I posted on Richardson Politics if anybody wants to go look at it. But I think there's a lot, it's a great district. It's a great district. We want our kids here. We don't want to go anymore. Can't really afford to go any farther south. We're in a good place, and we know it. But the way that parents are being treated when they stand up for their kids, totally unacceptable. Not okay. And that is a safety issue for our children. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate that. You covered kind of a lot of territory with that. So there's probably going to be all three of us responding. If we can on it. I mean, who watches the money? I watch the money. Our board members watch the money. We have maintenance dollars available for it. If there's an issue at a school, like something like you just mentioned, all they have to do is do a work order, and we'll address it. That's all that has to happen. So if there's a disconnect there, what we would encourage you to do is visit with your building principal, and that can be addressed. We have funds to do that. We're not shortchanging that at all. So let me get all the way through. You already threw a lot, and I'm having a hard time recalling the things you mentioned at the beginning. So don't throw any more on me until I get through all of it, if that's okay. So, I watch the money. We have maintenance dollars available. We have operating dollars available. We're not shortchanging anything there. We feel like we've been very effective in managing those dollars and providing resources to our campuses and walking with our building principals. And if there's certainly something that needs to be done, we're not saying we're perfect. But if there's something that needs to be done and you have an issue at your campus and you don't feel like it's being addressed, your first person to go to here at Berkner High School is that gentleman right there. And you need to share that concern with him, and then he can issue a work order if it's a facility issue. If you have an issue with curriculum instruction, he's the man to see on that. And we can address those things. I'm going to speak to the non-traditional school, and we already spoke to that last night, and I'm going to speak to that every single meeting if someone gives me the opportunity to do it. Everyone in this room may not know that the board decided to use some of those capital project dollars to pay for what we're calling a non-traditional program and build a facility that addresses the needs of kids that are either dropping out, have dropped out, or at risk of dropping out. And we have gotten a number of folks, and you've expressed your discontent with that several times, that are very unhappy with that.
Just the way it's handled.
I understand, but hold on, again, let me finish. I'm getting through this, you've given us a lot, so Dr. Wagner's gonna speak too, and then Ms. Stubbs gonna speak too.
What you just said.
But what I'm
makes it
saying
sound
is-
like I'm not for that, and I'm very for that, because there's.
With how that was handled, but our point on that, and the reason that we took action on that and used those capital projects funds to do that quicker, is we have hundreds of kids that are either have dropped out or are dropping out or at risk of dropping out that we are not serving right now. And so our board decided we're not going to wait for a bond in May to do that. We're going to issue dollars right now to serve those hundreds of kids that we're not able to serve. And we think that that is a strong use of dollars and is every bit as important as anything else we can do. So what we're building is a facility to be able to accommodate that. Right now, we accommodate that through an evening program at our Christopher McAuliffe Learning Center that only can serve about 65 or so students. With this new facility, we're going to be able to offer a morning program, an afternoon program, and an evening program that would serve 400 to 500 students on a daily basis that we are not serving right now. So as far as use of dollars, absolutely think it's a high priority for us. I have no regrets about it whatsoever. And as I mentioned last night, the only regret I have is we didn't do it sooner. That's the only regret I have. As far as safety issues at campuses, we have addressed those issues at Prestonwood and at Aiken. We have, what we've done is, it's not ideal, but what we have done is we have secured those hallways so when someone comes in, they can't immediately walk in and get access to where those students are. There's a controlled access door there and it funnels any visitors to the office. So we still want to bring it up to the front of the building for the convenience and a better flow, but we have not shortchanged those campuses as a result of it.
Thank you for that.
So we think that's important.
Was just out
No,
there.
safety is absolutely a
No,
priority
but I
for
mean,
us.
every time I hear it talked about, these kids are exposed still to people walking by the classroom. And
No, it's just a poor design. I mean, it was a design in the 70s, it's a terrible design. And we want to correct the design. So, but we have not sacrificed the safety and security of our kids. You know, the safety and security here, the controlled access at Berkner. If there's an issue with that and that is not functioning like you think it should function, that's a gentleman to see on that.
Actually, I was
because-
talking about Richardson High School, and anybody.
Well, it's a different gentleman to see at Richardson High.
I know, but I'm
So,
just saying.
Henry doesn't have to take responsibility for Richardson and Berkner.
Yeah, I'm
But,
just saying, like, you think that they're all controlled access, people, I mean, people.
well, that is the
can't
intent.
just get-
That is the intent, is all the doors are controlled access. We have keyless card entry at doors that staff are supposed to be using. And so if there are issues, then that needs to be brought to the principal's attention and we can address it. So I know Dr. Wagner is waiting patiently for me here.
I think you covered it. I was just going to speak to the safety issue, and for all the parents who are here and community members, and just absolutely share that that is a very, very, very high priority for us, and one that we are diligently committed to ensuring the safety of our kids. And I think this district, from what I understand, and I wasn't here at the time, but years before many districts took the steps of the buzz-in systems, the controlled access doors, the security cameras. Those have been in place for years. Are we perfect in those procedures? We're close. When we're not, and we try and we find things that are issues, we do safety audits each and every year. We correct those. We have a very strategic plan in terms of the campuses and the audits each and every year. But I just didn't want anyone to leave. And I also want to clarify at Aiken and at Prestonwood, we also have controlled access. We also have a buzzing. But Mr. Harper would have clarified that. So I just wanted to assure parents who are here that safety is paramount, and we are absolutely committed to safety.
On safety, can I just say one more thing?
You bet.
I have a daughter at Westwood Junior High, and we just had a situation come up, and I posted it on Richardson ISD Politics, because it gets people involved, and we get to talk about things later. So basically what it was, three gentlemen were on our campus on the sidewalk.
And let me just-
Wait, no, let me finish it. So they're supposed to be on the sidewalk. These guys were not on the sidewalk when I picked up my daughter. They were approaching students, one was stopping cars. So I went inside the building and I said to the police officer, the campus police officer, and I said, what's going on? He was like, whoa, no, I didn't know they were on. I'm like, yeah, they're stopping cars, kids are leaving, they're giving, they're approaching children. And anyway, so I had taken pictures and I showed him, yes, they're on the property. Yes, this is the guy that parked in the parking lot. and there's his license number. I mean, it's concerning. So then in the conversation, everybody's like, oh, you know, you're anti-Bible, or whatever. I'm like, no, this is a public school. I don't care what they are handing out, what religion, whatever. Those people do not belong on campus. They were physically on campus. Well, it turns out there are multiple campuses around the district. And it is a concern. And everybody's just like, oh, it's you, you've got a problem with that. Well, and I'm like, and then this morning, there was this, you know, the shooting, whatever. But I'm just saying, like, but no, but
right now. And you said we can talk about that later because.
But I know, but I think
tonight
other
is
parents,
on.
I know,
And,
but that's part of our safety.
but this is not the forum for that, Mrs. Wilkerson. I respectfully ask you to include your comments on that.
Okay.
And this is not the forum for that, and we do have procedures for distribution of literature and so forth. And if there are
Opening up to
issues,
other issues.
if
that's
there
why
are
I
issues,
said that.
again, that needs to be reported to the principal.
Yeah, I will definitely.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next question.
Oh, wait, we were going to talk about,
Well, I will take I'll always take the opportunity to talk about instruction, curriculum instruction. That is my area. And Ms. Wilkerson, you and I have had a number of conversations about our plan this year that have been put in place. You were at the board meeting when we covered about 50 pages of goals that we put in place at the beginning of the year to talk about curriculum instruction. There's nothing more important to me in my life than this job, well, my family and my faith, but this job right now and leading curriculum instruction at Richardson ISD. I've been in education for 25 years, and I came to Richardson ISD because I wanted to work here. And every one of the meetings that I come to, parents stand up and they go to microphones and they talk about how they moved to Richardson ISD. You talk about how you moved to Richardson ISD. Because you grew up in Richardson, but you wanted to raise your family here. And these families, they want to have their kids here because of the strong education system that we have here. So, what I would like to just ask is for you to give us the opportunity to prove that we are on this mission to educate every single one of our students. There's nothing more important to my staff members who are all here tonight, the teachers and principals that are here tonight. We're all here for that mission together. And I think that our teachers are the best in the state, in the country, doing a great job. And so I stand up for them, and I stand up for our principals and all of the educators in our district that are doing a phenomenal job for your kids and all of these families.
except for the kids that have learning differences that don't fit in that. And you're from a district that
We
has
need to, I'm
addressed
sorry,
that.
Ms. Wilkerson, I mean, we're kind of deviating from the,
We've let you kind of go on for a while. So we're happy to try to answer your questions and stay, but we're here to talk about
No, I'm
bond.
good.
So I mean,
I'm good.
I think
That's
that,
all.
you know, if you had a couple of questions, I think we've answered a number of them. Do we have anybody else that has questions related to the bond package?
Come on up, we would love to hear from you. You've been waiting patiently, sir. Come on up. Thank you.
Okay, since people introduce us, I'm Bill Adcock. I'm involved with Berkner baseball here. And also athletics. And I've had some couple of negative comments that came out of the athletic facilities. I think I'm sorry, but we need those facilities. I go out to, I've seen other school districts in smaller towns that have these big indoor facilities, like Greenville Independent School District, where I'm from, has a great big indoor athletic facility. And it's just a great marketing thing. It's great for real estate values. It's great for everything to have good athletics, good recruiting for our state. And they get recruited to other places, and which I've heard from the coaches around. I can't remember their names, but I want to reiterate, that the extracurricular activities of Berkner, or if you've ever been to a pep rally and seen all the different dance schools and things that go on a pep rally, it's just incredible. So we have a facility like that that they can practice at, instead of trying to practice in the cafeteria or here. We've got to have that stuff. I mean, I'm sorry, it's a price to pay. $20 million for a facility like that. I'm an insurance adjuster. There's warehouses going up all over the city. Amazon, $20 million. Things like that, where they're concrete tilt structures. They're going up within 6 months. They're all $20 million. And so That's not that much money, I hate to tell y'all that. The question, okay, so the scoreboards, have we, I know the Lake Collins Berkner School Board has a video screen, I think it's about this big. Is there anything in the budget for better video screens or anything like that? Or I think the athletic fields actually have a shelf life too. Is there anything within these line issues on the athletic fields?
There are. Mr. Duty has done a great job of trying to extend the life of the turf fields, and so what's included in the bond package is replacement of the turf. What's also included in the bond package are the scoreboards and the sound systems at the B fields. So the Berkner B field would receive that as well as what's included.
Well, we say that turn it north and south instead of east and west. That'd probably be too much, but it's pretty hard. We're looking west, and I mean, the Cowboys built theirs like that, so I must have looked at ours. Is there any money in the 2011 budget that hasn't been spent for athletics? Or 2011 bond, I guess?
No, I think that Coach Duty has done a really good job of exhausting his available funds. So, I think that anything that's left there now, we're in the last year of the 2011 bond. The 2015 is the last year of it. So there are some items that are still being appropriated and spent, and those will all be exhausted by the spring of 2016.
Okay, Coach Duty's telling me a lot of that stuff. All right, thank you, Alfred.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am.
I am kind of disappointed at the turnout. Just for something this important, I would have, but thank you for everybody for coming. The proposed changes and improvements, do you see when that, do you have a time when that will be completed, or as far as like the facilities, the training facilities for the athletics?
We haven't gotten to the point where we've established that draw schedule that I mentioned earlier. What would happen is it would not be year one because they haven't actually been designed yet. So what we would do in the spring is if those items are included and everything were to pass, then we would have architects sit down and work with our staff, and then we would visit with each one of our high school staffs on that as well to let them be a part of the design piece. And we have to design it, so realistically, you're looking at, it would be the third year of the bond would be the earliest to do something of that magnitude and have it in place. And then what we would like to try to do too is, we've had some folks that say, well, we're okay with splitting them and having maybe a couple done first and a couple done after that. And, generally everybody's okay with that as long as one of their high schools is one of the ones that gets done first.
Yeah.
So what I think our preference would be to try to do all four of them simultaneously. So all four high schools came online at the same time with that facility.
And say what it, yeah, I'm right there with you on that. The other thing is, have we taken into consideration the cost of the maintenance that would require to maintain these facilities?
We have, and that's part of that document there. If you go online and you look at the detail, it shows the estimated annual operating costs for it as well, so that the board and everyone can make an informed decision. It's not just paying this much to build it, then you have to actually heat and do the forced air and clean it and maintain it and do all those things. And it's about a little over $1 million a year for all four.
Will that affect the taxpayers?
I'm sorry,
Will that affect the taxpayers?
That part would be on the operating side, and we would have to incorporate that into our operating budget.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
say a few more things about the CTE and our opportunities for kids, because every one of our students in the 8th grade, they can complete a personal graduation plan. And we want every single one of our students to make a decision to explore some kind of career pathway when they get into high school. And we don't think that every 8th grader is going to make a decision about what they're going to do for the rest of their lives, but we know that if they can explore different options when they're in high school, they're less likely to graduate and take courses and to waste their parents' money taking courses that will not channel into a career. Or we want them to get some certificate, a license, so they can go to work, or the military as a meaningful option for them. And so we are expanding, every year we are expanding, providing more and more options so that every student can have a pathway when they get into high school. It's a huge priority for us. It's one of our 3 priority goals in the district.
I think we have some closing remarks. And again, as Dr. Berkner mentioned, we will stay. And so if you're more comfortable coming up and just asking a question privately, we'll do that. And if we could please get your comment cards from you for feedback. But we'd like to turn over to Ms. Greenhall for some closing remarks.
Thank you so much. I am Lynette Greenhall, member of the Board of Trustees, and I have lived in this Berkner area for 33 years and have 3 proud Berkner High School graduates who went through the system. So first of all, we want to say thank you so much for your coming. We know you've invested your time in being here, and that's really critical. You have information now that many of the community members don't have, and we hope you will take that information out and share it. I encourage them to go to the website, as you heard, to fill out their questions, to and give us their input, because we did want to hear exactly what's important to you all. One of the goals for tonight was to sort of tell you where we've been, and we talked about that. 15 years ago, this board and this district made a commitment that we would come to the citizens only once every 5 years to ask for bond dollars and ask for capital improvement dollars, and we've held to that commitment. And this 2016 bond is the last part of that 20-year commitment. And so it's important that we go through and finish that commitment, and then in our next strategic plans, we will make sure to see where we want to go next. But we've talked about the things that happened in the last bond, particularly. We've fulfilled those commitments, and so as we go forward, it's important to think about what do we want to do now? What kind of district do we want to be? What do we want for our students? And I'm so glad that Dr. Stone had an opportunity to talk to you about the academic side. We didn't open with that, and we didn't focus on that because that's not the focus of tonight's meeting. We're talking about facilities, but that's why we're here, is the academic side of what's happening in our ISD and what happens for our kids. And that is so critical in terms of what we can do, what kind of district we want to be, what we want our kids to do. But we have to have the facilities and the operational aspects of that to be able to make that happen. And so that's what you all as a community can do. It is the community's responsibility to come forward and help us with those facilities through this bond program. And that's why we want to hear from you what you want in it, what your tolerance is for how much you want to pay to make that happen, and how you all can help us as a district in our community to be the best district we can be. So we do want to hear your questions. We want to continue to hear. We are going to continue as a board to listen. There are more of these tours that are going on all across the district until early January. And then we will take all that information and we will look at what the components will actually be. And hopefully when we bring that bond, when we call that bond election and we bring it to you all in May, that you will be our champions in helping sell this in the community and helping people understand how important it is for that to be passed and to be passed heartily, and for us to invest in our students and invest in our community. So thank you very much.
Okay. Right. Yeah, great.
Late.
Did you see that? Did you see that?
No, I just
Well, so,
yeah.
so I don't know if y'all want to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know what? What's nice is
You didn't stand up and lobby for that facility.
Yeah, because like 2 or 3 years ago, that's one of those typical things I didn't want to turn away, but it's like,
these people are like, no, not in this climate. That's in Emily.
what grade are you in? Okay, and
Loves
yeah.
she's, you know, the girls.
See, I can't get my internet. I'm going to show you my daughter and my son, but
She can just turn her off, sort of whatever. And so I'm our members that don't listen to that, that's not you.
yeah. Did you continue the photography and all that too? Or you still doing photography? I remember. Didn't you just do photography? Yeah. I remember you had great pictures. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I did the direct entry working tonight. I was doing stuff for very well. Those are pictures. I mean, I was there all scary for yeah. Right, and that's what we did because when they recommended my son go there.
Oh, I think you just let him right here in South Seattle. Because they're walking around. Yeah, I was really glad.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm just saying, you know,
I'm glad that most people talked about it. I was surprised that that came up. I was like, wow.
Yeah, American Airlines. They seem to know the same things. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we didn't understand. You know, and she was tested for dyslexia.
I'm thinking that will start to sell to I mean, it's like,
This is your
she's not dyslexic. You know, she has a kid. She's done in several classes. Because, you know, she's walking
You screwed up, my guy. Yeah.
Who's like, Mom? Yeah, my kids. Yeah, I'm like, oh, no, that, but you know what, that might be, you're not going to shoot. I know. And she's in the meeting. She's trying to do something better. Do you know Bonnie?
Yeah, Bunny, I haven't seen. We were just gifted together, you know.
She was
she was recording a different. I gotta go talk to a couple people up there.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, you know, I haven't seen you since Hamilton Park. And it's just like it's amazing. No, I know. No, I don't think we.
I see you on Janet.
Yeah, Dan and I interact a lot.
Janet is just a
She's a hoot.
Oh my gosh, she's so. It's well, I mean, we have different politics and everything, but you know, I love the girls and I love the people.
Oh, her daughter Catherine and Mary are on the academic decathlon different schools. So, yeah.
Like how awesome that we did that. No, it's extra. I don't do it. Like these boys.
It saved Mary's life because she was just deciding to wrote because you know I did computer science and realized that the Mary's been a lot of CJ
It's computer science, but they don't have a robot. We did the FLL. I don't know if you remember that. We did first Lego language or whatever.
Yeah,
that was so fun. But that engagement, like a lot of Jake's friends left Richardson High School and went to the collegiate high school.
And we lost some kids.
I know, and I'm like, dang it! But they keep showing up at Richardson and want to go to dance, and so you know they're missing that particular thing. It's about that, you know.
Well, I'm just, you know, I just when I saw, I was like, oh my God, that's Cindy. I was like, I hadn't seen.
Yeah, I know.